Hello, hello, and welcome to Radio Free Nintendo, episode 864. This is Guillaume Veillette, your impromptu host, and with me today, I don't have James, but I do have Greg Lee.
Ahoy, ahoy, everyone.
And John Linneman.
It is great to be here, Guillaume. Actually, and I will say, greater than when James is here.
Wow. Well, let's hope that nothing happened to him.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, yeah, I might have to... Oh god, let's not think about that. But hopefully your theory that he fell asleep due to exhaustion, possibly... You know what? There was a Unicorn Overlord demo that released. He hadn't played it last week. Maybe he's played it this past week.
Let's hope so.
Maybe, yeah. Like, pulled an all-nighter, but he's not that young anymore.
Yeah,
and
we know.
So,
yep.
Yeah, just fell asleep on the demo, trying to min-max whatever. Alright, so that's our current running theory, and hopefully he'll show up at some point, and if not, then hopefully he'll show up next week. We really have no idea. So, moving on, I guess we'll do new business. We'll get started without him. So, Greg, why don't you start us off?
Sure, yeah, so I mentioned a little bit last week getting on with the Mario vs. DK remake after completing Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, and now, yeah, I've completed the Mario vs. DK remake. I mean, it's got a bit of extra sort of content compared with the original game because it's got 2 extra worlds with some, kind of new level gimmicks, like these sort of teleport boxes, somewhat inspired by similar things in Super Mario 3D World. I get, well, probably Land first, but kind of adapted to the puzzle nature of these levels, and kind of color coded because everything revolves around kind of red, yellow and blue switches and stuff. So like I said, it's a little bit more stuff, but generally speaking, I kind of knew what to expect. I thought it wouldn't take me too long to work through because, like I said, it starts pretty gently, and then there's some stuff in the back half of the game which requires more precision and a bit more actual kind of puzzling to reach the solution in the first place, which I think is
sure.
That's probably my favourite phase of the game. Is kind of, it's a bit silly to spoil it because the original game is like 20 years old, but this version is new, and I don't really know how many people played that version. I mean, I guess it was like an ambassador game, I think.
It was, yes.
Yeah, so maybe some people played it that way, although not that many, because by definition there weren't that many ambassadors, because if there were, there would have been no need for that fucking program in the first place.
Exactly.
And I probably was on Wii U Virtual Console, I would assume, as well, but basically there's a kind of, a kind of the second half of the game where it takes kind of a hybrid approach. You see, in the first part of the game, you have like a few different types of levels. You have like the levels that are kind of a kind of 2-part affair, where you have the part where you have to get a key to the door, and then the second part where you rescue a mini Mario toy. Then you have the kind of level that caps off a world where you then take all the mini Mario toys you've rescued and you have to lead them to the goal, this sort of the toy chest with you. So that was really kind of the jumping off point for what the Mario vs. DK series would become later with the March of the Minis, the second game on DS, and then a lot of the subsequent ones, which I played that first one. I never really did get around to play any of the others, even though some of them reviewed quite well, and I didn't mind the kind of change to that.
Did you
style.
play the kind of the free one on 3DS and Wii U that was
a little
Amiibo
bit
powered?
A little bit, yeah, because it was free, and it had some like minis with particular behaviours based on being different characters that were based around Amiibo or something. Yeah, I played a little bit of that, but not a great deal. That's well remembered. I think, was it like Tipping Stars was the last one, I want to say. Pretty pretty late on with the Wii U, which was all
that
about.
Sounds right.
Which is all about kind of making your own levels and this idea of kind of like, you know, rating or giving tips to like good creations or something. I think that was, that's one of the things that's a little bit surprising about this remake, after sort of the things to add other than the 2 extra worlds. The fact they added co-op instead of like making your own levels is a little bit surprising to me, considering like that is something that's kind of, you know, fit into this series before. In particular, if I'm not mistaken, and this is based on some very kind of hazy recollection from a long time ago, I think the Mario vs. DK GBA game started life as more of a remake of Donkey Kong for Game Boy than the 94 game, but with custom levels. Like that was the genesis, and then it kind of morphed into Mario vs. DK, where it's like, well, it's not exactly a remake, and you know, it doesn't have like user generated stuff. So I have to say, I'm surprised that they kind of went with the co-op focus, but you know, I don't want to underestimate the amount of work that would have to go into, you know, kind of administering, you know, creator level functionality and sharing and all that stuff.
But do you think this is going to be a popular co-op game though?
Yeah, I have my doubts. I haven't tested it in co-op, and I'm not going to. I played it as a single player game back in the day. That's the way it was designed. I know there are new levels, but the new levels very much fit into the existing paradigm, just with some new kind of stage, you know, gimmicks or features, if you like. So it's very much designed around that. So, you know, I can't imagine it's going to be something that's uniquely enjoyable in co-op, but perhaps it could still be, you know, somewhat enjoyable, but it's just a little bit of an odd choice. But
yeah, maybe for, you know, like a parent and their child. Yeah. But then like I find that it's like, why is the second player Toad and just Toad? Like, why not the you know, Peach or Luigi or whoever? Like, it feels like if the goal was to have it.
You know, they could have actually brought it, because Mario vs. DK 2 was like, I think the first game for a long time to that point, which was about 06 or 07, to acknowledge Pauline from Donkey Kong again. And then, of course, you know, she ended up being a big part of Odyssey, and she's in a lot of the, you know, Mario Kart, Mario Tennis, whatever now. But, yeah, they could have had the second character be Pauline or something, just to sort of, you know, like reinforce that link with Donkey Kong, perhaps. But yeah, it may, like I said, I don't want to speak about it as if it's definitely some sort of dud feature, because, you know, I haven't had the chance to test it, and maybe people that do, you know, find it, you know, kind of enjoyable and how much adaptation work they've done for it. I know they've done some, but I don't know how well it works and all that. But yeah, it just seemed like a little bit of an odd choice. But like I said, that first half of the game where you've got those different types of levels, but when you get to the kind of second half, you then sort of get a new type that, like I said, I won't go into too much detail about, because for people who haven't seen it before, they may as well, you know, wait and see. But it kind of hybridizes some of those styles into a new one that helps them, you know, make it a little bit trickier for a few different reasons. And that definitely was my favourite part of going back to it again, is kind of seeing what they do with those. And it's never that difficult. And kind of the way, I think we already mentioned this on a previous occasion, perhaps with the demo, you know, the way they've changed things to say that now, like, basically getting a kind of what's now like a star rating, a perfect on a level, is just contingent on getting the 3 presents that are in a level, rather than before. I think it was contingent on reaching a score threshold, which was a combination of collecting those things and how fast you did it. And it might sound like, well, is it really that different? And it's not that different, especially as there is a separate time attack thing that you can do. But it's still, it feels like, again, because of the way that these levels would have been designed originally, you feel like these were designed in such a way that, okay, it might not be that difficult to get the 3 presents in question, but it is difficult to do it at speed. And now that part of it doesn't really matter, because, I mean, the presents don't even exist in time attack mode. They're just gone. You know, it's purely just get to the goal in that, whereas, you know, when you play regularly for the star rating, the presents are there, but the time doesn't matter. So they kind of separated it out. And I do kind of wonder what the logic was for that exactly. But again, having not played Mario vs. DK, you know, the original GBA game in so many years now, you know, maybe there's some good reasons, you know, why that score kind of metric you could have used with being shaken up a bit, but I'm not going to remember them.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of remember going for those like 3 stars, and like not only you had to get all the presents and you had to do it fast, but you had to kill the enemies in an optimal way as well, right? And,
well, really, I don't even remember that. God, well, there you go.
I think so, because they gave you points for killing
yes,
the enemies.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? When it is a score thing like that, you can kind of fold different things in, and I guess it's, you know, a choice or of approach that you can take in terms of, is it worth, you know, taking the extra time to kill these things to get the extra points or not? And I guess, you know, you would find that maybe they thought it made it clearer rather than, you know, people wondering about, well, is this, you know, kind of score, you know, is the score, if I do it this way, is the score going to add up to be enough or something? Maybe they thought it was opaque. I don't know. But, you know, it's a kind of curious choice again, but for the most part, I think it's a really quite, you know, effective, you know, well done remake. It just seems like, first of all, the presentation obviously is a lot better. You've got everything and more, you know, content wise, really, with the extra worlds, and, you know, like I said, I unlocked, all the expert levels and did those, you know, so it's quite addictive because the levels are short, you know, it really always was, you know, designed as a portable game, and, you know, it remains a very effective portable game to this day. And, you know, I think maybe, again, this is a little bit dependent on my hazy memories. I think one tweak they might have made with the way it works is fall damage. So there was definitely fall damage in Game Boy Donkey Kong, because that was like, you know, being faithful to Donkey Kong, the arcade game, right? Mario can't fall very far without dying. So I think it was still there. But I think it was still there in Mario vs. DK as well. Whereas here, you just kind of get stunned if you fall a certain way. The thing is, I didn't even really realise this for ages because I just played it instinctively, avoiding taking any big falls. And then eventually I was playing like one of the harder levels and it happened. It's like, oh, I didn't die. he just got stunned and, you know, kind of, it slowed me down a bit. You certainly wouldn't want to do it if you were trying to do the time attack, target, times. But, other than that, so I think, you know, that's like a little bit of a, you know, kind of maybe taking a little bit of an edge off there, because I think for a lot of people that might be coming to this as a Mario spin-off, you know, for playing other Mario games, and this is, you know, it's a kind of puzzle platformer, and obviously it handles very differently from, you know, the core Mario platformers, but I think a lot of people, young and old, might be weirded out by like, wait a minute, he dies if he falls too far? Like, since when has that been a thing? Well, it's like, well, since 1981, actually, but it might not, it might not sort of resonate in that way. So I kind of get the change, but no, it's, you know, pretty slick, and, you know, like I said, I would imagine, yeah, probably best for like, I think it would probably have the more impact with somebody that's a younger player or a less experienced player, you know, playing this type of game for the first time, rather than someone like me who's played, you know, the Game Boy game and the original version of this game. But still, it was kind of, having had like those mini games for a while and all that, it was still refreshing to some extent to revisit this in a really nice package and just work through it pretty fast and in a pretty satisfying way. So no complaints from me. I think this is a sort of second, you know, remake a game with dodgy pre-rendered graphics win in a row after the Super Mario RPG remake. Maybe it's something they could. I'm trying to think, like, what's the next most viable candidate for such a thing? Do we think? I don't know.
Clay Fighter, obviously. I think it's the obvious choice.
The problem is, like, that's that game's whole identity, isn't it? You can't
right,
really.
It is.
It's just like, let's remake Pit Fighter with good graphics. It's like, that's not the point. That's not how it works.
Like, you probably had the wrong business model, Pit Fighter and Clay Fighter. Probably not good for the long term.
All right, so everyone can breathe a sigh of relief. James Jones is here.
Yeah, I just got back from Lethal Leap Year. I got to watch that villain Chad. Too bad. Finally get what's coming to him. John, you should have been there.
Yeah, we'll have a chat. I was telling these guys we'll have a chat about Leap Year a little bit later when I come to New Business.
Oh, okay, good.
Right. I forgot to say the date. Yeah, we are recording this on February 29th.
Well,
and
that's okay, Guillaume, because this day technically doesn't exist.
I guess.
What? No, it definitely exists.
According to the developers of Theatrhythm, apparently it doesn't. Have you heard this?
Well, yeah,
that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
But it's Square Enix. What do you expect?
It's shocking, to be fair. It's not. It reminds me of the Y2K bullshit, but at least that's once in 1,000 years. I mean, once every fucking 4 years. Come on.
Well, the funniest thing, too, and this also, since we're on the topic, I was going to bring this up in New Business. However, since you brought it up, Greg, not only did that game fail, but the funniest thing is, okay, and actually I tried it with Theatrhythm. I said, okay, maybe this is just the Switch version or something. But I tried it on PS5, and sure enough, what happens is the splash screens come up, and it goes through a couple of, like, this is the 35th anniversary of Final Fantasy. There's a couple of splash screens it goes through. But then the title screen is just black. The title screen never comes up. And so I set the date on my console manually to March 1st at midnight, 12:00 a.m. Game boots like a charm. I was like, oh, man.
The really dumb thing here is that basically pretty much any software suite that you would write code for already handles handles this. Like, you have to basically go out and write your own thing.
Yeah, like, this is a pattern at this point. This isn't something that is not known. This is one of the major things that you test for. I mean, I don't even fault QA entirely, because what are the developers doing? This is like very basic stuff. And apparently it also happened with EA Sports, their World Rally Championship game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that apparently just crashed on startup.
It's amazing.
Well, in the news, in New Zealand, apparently the fuel pumps have been not working all day because of this. So it's not. Apparently, it's more common than you'd think.
Anyway,
I just I'm glad that you're here, James, because like recording on leap year, that's never happened before, and apparently it won't happen again until 2044.
Really? That's
Unless we record on another day than a Thursday, of course.
No, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I mean that we could record it on a Wednesday just to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, apologies. I really wanted to see the sea creature lose to Big Bart Bartholomew over the farm, which is one of my greatest skits I've ever seen in my life. But we're back now. I apologize.
No, it's all right. I've taken control now. Albeit poorly.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, really, it's February 29th, man. Anything goes. Crazy things happen, James.
Is that your legal defense when you're on trial in about 3 months?
There's a certain electricity in the air, James. Like, this is like crackling.
Your Honor, I have sovereign immunity on February 29th. It's like
day never happened. It never happened.
It's like the Purge, except it only happens once every 4 years, except the once in 1,000 years where it doesn't happen. Or I guess it's once in a century.
My favorite thing about the Theatrhythm stuff was that they're like, oh yeah, don't worry, 4 years from now it'll work just fine.
That's good.
It's like, okay. Awesome,
so
thanks.
Apparently, like they needed this to program this thing in because the characters, like the game calls out the characters' birthdays when it's their birthday.
I mean, but like you could just.
But then they didn't.
You could just look at the date and say, "Is it on the list?" No, okay. You don't need to parse the date. You could just treat the date like a fucking string and call it a day.
Yep.
Like, you don't have to actually go like, all right, let me go ahead and put this into the... Like, the only reason it would make sense is if the underlying programming language they're using when you cast the value that the device gave. The device said it is February 29th, 2024 at N time. And you cast it into the date time structure. The thing does some kind of validation. Well, that's not a valid date. And like nobody ever put code around like in the event of invalid date because they thought, well, I mean, the device would never give us an invalid date. Now that is programmer egoism. Yeah, I'm going to cast this thing, but this is an easy cast. There's no way that's going to be wrong. It's like, well, actually.
Yeah.
You know, we do skip one leap year a century, I believe. It's like ones that are divisible by 100 or something like that. 100, but not 400.
Closed that page.
Oh, okay. That's good. It's 100, but not 400. 400 divisible count or something like that. So you do have to put a little bit of thought into it, but not much. Not fucking much. Square Enix is beautiful.
Amazing. I mean, the thing is, these are large teams of professional developers and QA people. So
getting smaller by the day, John.
Yeah. But thankfully it didn't happen because, hey, February 29th doesn't exist. This podcast doesn't exist.
Well, that might be true.
Anything goes.
That almost happened.
That's almost the case already.
Yeah. It's just the way things are, unfortunately. Well, that's fun. Thank you, Square Enix, for reminding us that you don't have to be, just reminding us you can be a dumbass and keep your job. It's great. I love it. I love it. And more to, I think we should also just collectively agree that certain days don't happen. Just be like, whenever we get an April 19th, just crash.
Yep.
Just immediately. Just write down. Bang. Gone. Fuck April 19th. Did somebody listening, that's their birthday, and they're really upset. And that's fine. You know what? That's fine.
Or, they're like, yay, I'm immortal.
Sure. Exactly.
Because that's how it works.
I'll be 13 forever.
I don't think anyone who's 13 is listening to this. And I hope they're not anyway. But anyway, so after this interlude, Greg, did you have more new business to talk about?
Well, yeah, so with Mario vs. DK kind of in the books, it went on to some Blast Core, which went up on NSO as part of the partner direct presentation and all that. So yeah, but I've seen the credits on it. It doesn't take that long to do that anyway. I mean, I think I guess what we would refer to now as like the post game stuff in that game. I guess we probably wouldn't have had that in the parlance in the 90s quite the same way. But yeah, it's that's where it can really take some time. It brought back some memories because playing it on Rare Replay was in itself a long time ago now, nearly 9 years or whatever. But, I don't think I ever got this deep into it on there, so getting that bit, sort of further has brought back some more memories of like, oh yeah, this mission that I probably spent a great deal of time trying to get a gold medal on or whatever, because that's the thing. I think to see the very last kind of set of levels in the game, I think you need to have a gold on everything, which some of those gold times are not that crazy hard. And there is also like a further level. There is a platinum medal as well, which that's where it gets really crazy. But like some of them are pretty tight. And, so will I be unlocking every level? Probably not. I can't imagine. So I don't think I've got the skill, patience combination to achieve it these days. I suppose we could chip away at it very slowly. But, it's been fun revisiting it, to this depth, kind of, in a way that I haven't before. Again, bite-size kind of levels, challenges, so you can get kind of addictive. Just one more kind of thing in a portable setting. So, it's really nice to have it portably in this way. But I mean, again, a lot of it is things that kind of, jogs your memory back, or some of them were the things I went into very conscious of. I mean, there was one particular level, it's among the kind of last major set of levels, the larger levels where you actually have to clear the path for the, nuclear warhead transport, whatever it is. Maybe that was a leap year thing. Maybe that's how that went on the fritz. They just forgot to program the nuclear disposal vehicle for what it should do on a leap day. I don't know. But on those sorts of levels, where you have to clear the thing, they're like the main ones, and it's kind of almost like two phases to it, right? You kind of beat it the normal way, where you have to, clear the kind of designated route for it to get to the end, but then you come back into the level and you can get another gold medal by basically just like doing everything there is to do left. So it's like, destroy every structure that's left, even if it had, was not on the, kind of designated route. And then also kind of find those little kind of, they're little lights that light up, them ostensibly meant to be like, something to do with containing the radiation or something. It's like coins, essentially, it's like the blast core equivalent, of course. There's a lot of, contortions for, this scenario, because it's so silly. I mean, it really is. Like, one of the weird metrics of getting 100% on these levels is like, rescuing survivors or whatever, and it just means like destroying the building they're in. I mean, how does that rescue them? I don't get it. It really is kind of all over the place in that regard. But it's a fun premise, so who cares, really? But so. One of those levels, the last of kind of among the last of those major levels where you got to clear the route first, is called Oyster Harbour. And I went into that knowing like, yes, I'm going to achieve a lifelong ambition here, because I'm actually going to make my own checkpoints for this fucking level that always needed them, using the save states. So I was very conscious of that, like that, because it's a protracted level. It's essentially got 3 bits to it. You've got a bit where you have to kind of, clear some of the path with that bizarre, I guess it's kind of like the bat pod that comes out of the Batmobile in the Dark Knight, but like with rocket launchers. I mean, that's an interesting choice for when you're clearing a path for a nuclear warhead delivery system or whatever, isn't it? It's like, well, what if you had this really flighty, hard to control bike that's got missiles that just fly off everywhere? Like, it's, yes, logical choice. But yeah, you start in that and you've got to clear a bit of path. Then you've got to like put this explosive on a crane and use the crane to lower it onto a series of blocks, which if you don't put it on just the right spot of the blocks, it destroys one of them instead of all of them. So it's easy to think, oh, well, I'm doing the wrong thing. Like, what's this? And, like go off on some red herring, like of trying to destroy it some other way. No, you just got to hit it at just the right place and then the whole thing collapses. That's one stage. Ugh. Then you've got a second stage of the level where you've got to fill in these holes in the road using the dozer thing, and that's kind of interesting under pressure. And then finally you've got to line up these like canal barges as well, to get it to the end before destroying a final building, which it's way longer than almost all the other levels. It's quite a lot harder than a lot of the other levels, and it always seemed to me like it probably should have had checkpoints, but because the vast majority of the game, the levels are way shorter than that, I guess it's just like checkpoints weren't in the paradigm. And, they had this one level where they wanted to maybe, put people to the test a little bit more, because it is kind of getting towards the credits. And so, yeah, I can remember much pain doing that level in its original form. So I thought that we're going straight to my checkpoints of my own design with that one. And that's the thing. I think when they try and get it a bit more precise and kind of ramp up the difficulty a bit, it's more hit and miss at that point in terms of how successful it is. There's some of these, first of all, you get a bit of an over-reliance on the backlash vehicle, which is the dump truck, which you have to power slide its rear end into things to destroy stuff. And it's the most sort of technical, kind of vehicle. So it kind of makes sense that some of the more advanced challenges would use it, right? It's like, all right, especially when I was a kid, like, oh, there's a chrome robot that rolls around and just kills skyscrapers with dragon punches. Like, yes, that's cool, but there's no technique involved in it at all. You pretty much just roll towards stuff and it goes down. Like, that's not going to be suitable for higher level play. It's just kind of a fun thing to have there. But, so I get it, but there's too much reliance on it towards the end. It feels like almost all the latter, certainly a good chunk of the latter core missions revolve around that. And, you better get good with it, for a start. But, there's some of the other, like, there's the mech that's got the jetpack, like, that offers, like, somewhat more technical play and they do exploit this, but in a series of sort of optional missions where it, really sort of puts it to the test. It's like, okay, go and destroy these, like, 4 chrome spheres that are in a volcano. So, it's very much is a case of the floor is lava and the walls, and, you've really got to be careful with it and stuff. It's like, I feel like if you could have folded, like, using that in a more precise way into, like, some of the more, like, core missions, that would have been a good idea, but they kind of left it to the optional ones with that. But, like I said, it's when you're doing some of this stuff, like, moving around boxes of TNT with like some of the vehicles and stuff. It feels a little bit like you're doing stuff that the game isn't quite properly designed to do. It could just about manage it, but it's a bit fiddly, it's a bit imprecise, and, like some of these things just, I don't know how well people will take to them now, perhaps. But there's still, even if, you're not going as far as I have, I think it's on NSO, when you're not paying for it up front or anything like that, I think there's plenty of options, with how many levels you can play. It kind of clearly marks what vehicles or mechs or whatever are used in them and stuff. So just try a bunch of stuff out. A lot of the kind of early to middle levels are it's just fun. It's a fun concept. It still is to me, of just like going around and destroying these buildings and stuff. And I kind of at times I wish that the camera could be a bit more drawn out than it is. I mean, you have some control over it, and you can, if you're playing on one of those levels with the missile carrier or whatever, you can kind of zoom out to see where that is at any moment. But it's kind of trying to mimic, old school rare, like an RC Pro-Am, that kind of, perspective a lot of the time, but it just feels a little tight at times. I would prefer if it were a bit more zoomed out, and, you get the lay of the land a little bit more when you're trying to sort of clear things in sequence, especially. But, like I said, it still remains a relatively, unique sort of concept to this day, as far as my experience goes. And certainly, as we kind of touched on last week, a lot of what Rare did for Nintendo was, kind of answers to things that were popular out there on other formats or from other publishers. And this felt like just very much their thing, it felt like it had its roots in, some of the games they'd done before, like RC Pro-Am or Cobra Triangle. And, it was just their concept for something they could do on N64 that, was not anything that anybody else was doing, wasn't anything Nintendo was doing. And it's just a fun, goofy idea that's cool to play around with, and at the very least. And then, if you really take to it, you've got a lot of challenges, that span all sorts of bizarre scenarios including just outright Pac-Man mazes and all sorts of weird stuff. Lots of racing, again, to back up the RC Pro-Am link. But, if you really get into it, you've got a lot of things to try and kind of perfect and all that. But I think just, at the more base level, it's worth at least trying for people who have not played it before.
And you said you played it when it was on Rare Replay several years ago?
Yeah, definitely played it to some fair extent, but I don't think as much as now.
Right. So that collection, did it have the option for save states or no?
You know what? I don't remember. That's an interesting point. Yeah, I didn't even.
I was hoping that you knew, but
I
guess
I've not touched it in a few years.
I was
going
to ask, basically, is this the version to play today, or
maybe? Yeah,
that's
the thing. Maybe I just didn't even think to try it. I may not have even gone up to that level. That I was talking about, the Oyster Harbour one. And like I said, most of the rest of the levels are so short that you wouldn't. What's the point, really? But I suppose Rewind would be truly, nice to have, because sometimes there's some amusing goof ups you can make where it's almost I think I've pretty much got this in the bag, and then the stray missile from the aforementioned bike thing just hits the the carrier's plumb in the front of it or something stupid, and that would be nice to rewind. But for the most part, they're so short, you don't really just try to do it again. It doesn't take that long. But that particular level, like I said, may not have played it on Rare Replay and not put it to the test.
Cool. So that was it for your new business this week?
Oh, certainly, yes.
All right. So James.
Yeah.
You're with us.
I am.
It was my theory that you fell asleep because you spent all night playing Unicorn Overlord demo. Correct? Or am I far off base?
No. So I had a headache, and I laid down in a dark room, and I might have fallen asleep, or I might have just lost track of time. It's not clear.
I like to think you fell asleep, James.
If I did, it was for a pretty short window, because it was bad. But I was.
Well, everyone knows that the best medicine for headaches is like some sort of long strategy RPG with turn-based battles, but somewhat real time.
I get where you're going. But no, I have not messed with that demo yet because, and I'll just say this, and then I will wrap it up. Well, one, I had a bunch of crap going on this week, so I didn't really get a bunch of time to play games. But two, I would say I was in the last 2 hours of Trails to Azure for about the last 11 hours. Right. I will just say this. It's not really a spoiler. The last dungeon has 7 final boss fights. It's just like, oh my God. Because the entire game is just basically like them piling on enemies they're not strong enough to beat and getting their butt kicked. And then at the end, it's like, well, I guess we got to pay off that and knock all those guys out. It turns out if you give all of these bosses their own mini dungeons inside the main dungeon, it takes for fucking ever. It took me 3 nights. So yeah, I've started the Unicorn Overlord demo, but I have so little to say about it at this point that, I unfortunately no, I want to play it so badly. It's just everything else has conspired to not allow it. So, tomorrow I will have probably completed the demo because I don't know how long that demo is. I don't think it's very long.
My understanding was that it was just a time limited thing, right?
Like it's something like 6 or 7 hours.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so you're basically just playing the start of the game, and you play it for that length of time, and then it kind of cuts you off and says, buy the game.
Okay. All right. So I literally just started it and started poking at it.
I mean, I've probably got about 40 odd minutes on it. So
I don't even have that.
It's just the phase of the game where it's teaching you how it works at the most basic level, and the only kind of interactions that you're going through are following a script, essentially.
Yeah.
So, and of course you're being introduced to the characters and the scenario and all that, and it looks fantastic. It's Vanillaware. What do you expect? This is going to be one of those games where it's going to be more of a wrench to turn off the animations, I would have thought, because they do look very nice.
So actually, what I wanted to talk about was something that didn't happen. Okay. So I, for the last about almost 2 months now, every other week Nintendo has given us the one more thing in terms of Smash Spirits. And 2 weeks ago, we would not have expected one because we got one the previous week. But last weekend should have been a new set of spirits, and we didn't get one. And I thought this was very peculiar because it was Pokemon week and it would have been obvious, but no, we just didn't get a set. So the question is, are we done?
Yes.
And I think, but now we're on a weird number and I hate it again. so like, I hope we're not done. But
well, the one thing I will say is this week we've got something that they promised quite a while ago, actually. I think when they first spun up the sort of spirits again, this whole thing of like, the Amiibo tournament thing. So obviously they regularly have tournaments on there, that just aside from the quick play or the battle arenas, you've got tournaments you can go into. And for whatever reason, it's only ever been a very like infrequent thing where it's like, okay, you can have a tournament which is based around people playing as a sort of, a team of themselves and the Amiibo fighter that they've trained up and saved to a particular Amiibo. And so they hadn't done this in, I don't know how long. And then it was starting on, the 1st of March. So it's going to kick off in a few hours and run for about 5 days. So it will still be running for a bit, I think, when this episode is published, but not for very long after that. So yeah, I don't know if that, has some role to play in breaking up that cadence that they'd established with a few new spirits. Maybe it will resume sometime after this, but I guess it's all kind of as a recognition of the fact that, with the Sora Amiibo coming out, that's it. They've done it. They've got an Amiibo, for everything now. So yeah, I guess it's part of that.
That picture of all of the Amiibo on like one shot is legitimately kind of haunting. It's like I feel like if I had that in a space staring
it's like haunting in the way like that shot in The Wind Rises with all the ruined fighter planes heaped up onto each other.
That's not bad, actually. That's it's not quite the iconography I was thinking of, though.
It's just someone's dream come to absolutely ruinous fruition.
I was more of the mind that, like, if I was in a room with those, I would feel their eyes boring into me. Like they're just there. And as if I turned and caught them out of the corner of my eye, it would just be like, oh, well, this room's haunted now. I have by my own hand haunted this space. And so I am going to now have to leave it.
Yeah, it's a shame they remade Poltergeist before. Well, I say that it probably was like when Amiibo was the thing, but at least before there were all these Amiibo, where like they could have come to life and dragged you under the bed instead of that clown doll in the original.
I'm ready for an Amiibo based horror movie. I think that's got way more promise than some of the shit that they've been putting out. And Lord, the team that's got the Zelda movie are fucking trash people. So this will be good. Better than that. That's going to be terrible. Just spoiler warnings. Go look at what they've made. It's a bad scene. So yeah, look forward to that. Look forward to our Amiibo horror film, independently produced Amiibo horror film, unlicensed Amiibo horror film, Toys to Life horror film. There we go. Toys to Death. Done. We did it. We got there. We got to the name of the movie. Toys to Death. And then you can make the colon for the sequel. I don't know what you'd call it. I can't think of any. I was trying to think. There's got to be like a good Skylanders pun in here, but I can't think of one. So yeah, there we go. You can look forward to that from Radio Free Nintendo Films sometime around Halloween. It's definitely a thing that exists. So be ready. By the way, Guillaume, I need a script for Toys to Death by the end of the week.
Sure. I'll get ChatGPT on this right away.
You're going to get the team that made the Willy Wonka thing on it?
Yeah.
Jesus.
I've got no comments on that. Like, it's so, it really went viral on the internet, and everyone just can't get enough.
Well, I inventing new Wonka villains that live in your walls and make candy really is, ChatGPT really is amazing. It's where we're at now. The best part is that there's like a non-zero chance someone listening to this has missed this and like, wait, what the fuck are they talking about? Or they're just listening to it like 2 years later and are really fucking confused.
Just Google Willy Wonka Glasgow experience, and you should find it.
Experience is the right word.
Yeah.
Did y'all by any chance talk about the Pokemon Direct?
Oh, no.
No.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, but it was quite snappy, wasn't it?
It was like 15 minutes.
It did feel like, the update, they had their, what we would expect, the updates for, the kind of ongoing games, mobile games and such. They did that it just felt like with a bit more of a sense of expediency than in some previous presentations.
Yeah.
So that was, kind of grateful enough for that. But like, I guess the meat of it really was the trading card game, kind of mobile app, and then obviously the Pokemon Z2A.
Pokemon Legends.
Another Legends game. Yeah, well, we talked about this in the predictions that this was something I could envision being announced this year because Legends Arceus was announced 3 years ago, and they kind of do tend to operate on a 3-year cycle in a lot of ways for the different things. But I'm kind of surprised that it's by itself. In the set, I said I thought the most likely was probably maybe another remake like the Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, and by that not being announced, I think it's safe to say that will not be something, because that originally in towards the end of, what was it, November of 21, you had Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, and then just a few months later, in January of 22, you had Legends Arceus. So I guess it could have been both again, but no, just this, and a very minimal kind of
almost nothing.
Just a sort of concept. Try something about sort of the city, Lumiose City in the Kalos region, just being developed. Like, is this still set in the past anymore, of like an earlier phase of that city's development, are we going to the future now? Like, what? Yeah,
it says it's being redeveloped to be a city. Again, we've talked about this. I don't think you want to develop a city where Pokemon are just around, because most of them have near apocalyptic powers that they can just unleash. It's like, what if we had a city that was really built for the needs of Voltorb? Oh, you mean the things that just explode when they get spooked? Yeah, let's do that. That'll be good. That's a good idea. But yeah, it was really just like I said, it was a concept trailer. It was basically all vibes, the trailer. Because we didn't see a single second of gameplay.
And and however much you can talk about 3-year cycles, and by no means should we take that to mean that it will be out in like January 25. It may well be very, very much later than that. And in some ways, we might hope for it to be, because I really enjoyed Legends Arceus, but it was, a bit ropey at times. So, they probably, we should be relieved if they feel like they've actually had, a reasonable amount of time to construct this environment, because there was a lot that was really strong about Legends Arceus, but the world, it felt very kind of utilitarian, right. It didn't feel very kind of crafted, and so I obviously this time, seemingly with a somewhat different kind of setting, they couldn't just plagiarize the Breath of the Wild trailer. So it just had this very sort of vague, concept to, give us a vibe of the mood, of what the game would be like. I did not play X or Y, and of course there was no Z, there was no third version or X2, Y2 either, so I don't know whether that influenced their decision. Maybe this was a kind of generation that was a little bit more untapped.
Yeah, so I believe there was a Z Legendary Pokemon, like because but
it was in Sun and Moon, right? They didn't actually like kind of really get around to doing that version, that next version of the game where it would normally take center stage the way that you would have done it, like Pokemon Platinum, for instance.
Yeah, so I believe that's Zygarde. But, like, in the end, it was just like, yeah, we just didn't make it. We just didn't make Z. So, because they moved on to Sun and Moon, which was huge. Like, that was a gigantic, I think it was tied to an anniversary, too, wasn't it? Which is why it had so much red-blue influence.
Yeah, it was, yeah. And of course, it was round about when Pokemon Go blew up as well. So it was just like, I mean, considering... in every other, in the more general sense, you were talking about a pretty moribund time for Nintendo, because it's like, we're waiting for Switch and the 3DS is kind of just limping on, carrying what it can. Pokemon was having a real resurgence.
Yeah, I talked about it. I was in Japan for the launch of Sun and Moon, and all of the train stations either had ads for Sun and Moon or for, Miitopia. Like that's where Nintendo was. It was just giant wall-sized ads for Miitopia because that was what they had and that was what they were going to advertise. I swear I saw more Miitopia content on the walls of Japanese subways than I did anywhere else. It was amazing.
Of course, it does raise the question that because there's been the kind of speculation about in the scenario that Nintendo is not launching new hardware this year, which, there's been a lot of reporting about that seemingly is perhaps more probable than was previously thought, although it's
March
not like
2025, as I predicted.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we should have been all on the John train, obviously, but we still don't know anything. We still don't actually know anything, right? But the point is this. In the event that there isn't new hardware and therefore the launch games to go with it, there've been a lot of questions about, well, what would they have for the holiday season in that case? Yeah. Because, as we've already noted, with Zelda and Mario wrapping up last year, it very much felt like, okay, we're pulling the high value assets out of Switch development and it's on to the next thing for them. But that Pokemon seemed like the kind of thing you could rely on, like, yeah, well, if you have, a remake of Black and White or something like that could be something. I mean, it wouldn't be terribly different actually from 2021. We already talked about. I mean, what did you have in 21? You had Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, you had Metroid Dread, and you had Shin Megami Tensei 5. We could have almost had a rerun of all those things if Metroid Prime 4 actually reared its head. But no, there's not going to be Pokemon Re. Seemingly, there isn't going to be a kind of non-spin-off. Like we didn't even get bloody Pokemon Pinball like I was hoping on the day. But more to the point, we're not going to be getting a Pokemon kind of major release in October, November, it would seem. So that really does raise the question of what the bloody hell is going to happen in those months.
Well, and I mean, they'll announce some stuff in the summer, like
undoubtedly. Yeah. I mean, it's what, isn't it? It's what.
Yeah, it makes me feel like probably like what somewhere somebody has asked, what remake can we do in 8 months?
I mean, I would hope they asked it, what remake can we do in 10 months? Or 12. Exactly. But but they might be going like, okay, we've got all the 10 and 12s up. What can we do in 8?
Yeah.
Hey, can we get another Mario versus We just did one. We just did one of those. We can't do another one. Mm-hmm. Can we remake a Luigi's Mansion? We're out of Luigi's Mansion games.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, what 3DS game can we just port over with barely any changes? Let's do it.
Do you want to do an impromptu prediction? What 3DS game can they port over with barely Ever Oasis ain't it? That's not the thing.
Well, they just did. I mean, Pocket Card Jockey was the big one, right?
Right.
They just did that. So,
I mean, either one of these could. I was thinking this for maybe be like a thing on the next system, but we talked about the little streak they're building of remaking games with pre-rendered graphics. What about Donkey Kong Country All Stars? The original games.
There we go.
Remade with non-pre-rendered graphics, like Tropical Freeze plus level of graphics. Or, more easy, just do DKC returns. But, because that's been sort of stranded on Wii and the Wii U
3DS.
Digital and 3DS, which are all gone now. So, you could give that a bit of a spruce up, maybe. But I was thinking maybe an original DK side-scroller could be in the offing. But still, could work.
Give me to close out the Switch, give me a port of Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia. Just keep porting that game to the end of every console.
Right. Just
closer.
several months too late for it to have an impact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But every console from now to the end of time, just keep porting that game to it. Just like this is the blinking last call light at the bar. It's like, no, really, we won't let you buy any more drinks after this. And I don't know who you would add to Poochie and Yoshi's Woolly World at this point. Is there another character we can add so it could be so-and-so?
Usually Kirby has a key role to play in the closing sort of process, doesn't he? So maybe you could add Kirby to Yoshi and Poochie and Kirby's Woolly World. So,
funnily enough, in 2017, and I happen to know this, there were 3 Nintendo-published Kirby games on 3DS. Kirby Battle Royale, Kirby Blowout Blast, and Team Kirby Clash Deluxe all came out the same year. This is truly impressive.
Yeah, but the Kirby Clash, whatever, like that's just a mini game from one of the other Kirby
it's kind of
games.
like 2 of those were like eShop games where they took something that already existed and kind of just beefed it up a bit. And the one was like a multiplayer focused game, right? That was the actual one that came in a box.
Correct. Yeah. So Tank Troopers port to Switch. Got it. That's what we're waiting for. Miitopia already got ported to Switch. Just thinking about it. I don't know. Federation Force. Fuck it. Give me Federation Force.
Sure.
I've given up. Just bring it out.
Yeah, that would be absolutely exquisite, wouldn't it? After all this time. It really would be. People waiting for Metroid Prime 4 again, get Federation Force instead.
Honestly, that would actually be... I would start the episode of RFN going, so, gentlemen, are you ready for the Metroid game we've all been waiting for? Fucking Federation Force, let's go! I don't... They've kind of done all the 3DS games already. It's amazing.
Yeah, the ones that anybody really wants.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably another Mario and Luigi out there they could port. I don't know. But the company who makes those is gone, so that's a problem.
Yeah, and you've got the whole reason why those games seemingly, were leaned on for like 3DS content at the end. It's just they had the whole bunch of like high quality pixel art that they could kind of keep going back to for those games, but it doesn't really work on Switch the same way, does it? Because the Switch, 3DS is like a 240. Was it 300 by 240 or whatever? Yeah. So, that kind of low resolution pixel art could look really good on there, and it holds you'd have to really get in there and remake it, more along the lines of the Super Mario RPG remake, which is a lot more work, than just what they were doing with, with the Mario and Luigi games, where it's like, okay, we've done, was it Dream Team and Paper Jam, and now we can just use a lot of that stuff to remake the earlier games. Like that was one thing, having to kind of start from scratch for a Switch appropriate aesthetic. I'm not saying it's been like it's just some incredible, in task you can't achieve, but I don't know that it'd be economic.
No. So I think the correct answer is give us a Switch port of. Well, I was actually going to joke Monster Hunter Stories, but they announced that already. Fuck.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking the only other thing out there really might be Metroid: Samus Returns.
Yeah, I mean that would be a good example of one they could do.
Yeah, because that's 2017, so it's been a while. So
yeah. I mean,
so did anyone mention Steel Diver? Did I miss it? To me, that's the obvious one. But
did anybody miss it, Guillaume?
I felt like I covered the ground. give me Bravely Second End Layer port. Not Bravely Default. No. I want the other Bravely Default sequel. I want them both on Switch. Make it happen. I'm still dumbfounded that we haven't gotten any latent ports on Switch. What the fuck? What the fuck?
And
especially with World of Steam getting delayed.
Yeah, that's the thing. They've given themselves such a long run up. They could actually have done. You feel like they could have done some in how long it's going to take for the new one to actually get here. But
yeah, especially because some of those assets are already in HD from mobile devices. So like, come on. So whatever. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We're gonna get Sonic and Mario and Sonic at the 2016 Rio games port to Switch. Fuck it. Let's go. All right. Yeah, but I don't. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. All right. Roll. So yeah, you took over the podcast. Should I try to wrestle it back or?
Yeah, go for it.
All right.
It was my segment. God damn it.
Shut the fuck up. All right. So, John.
Whoa, hold on.
I like this.
I am not a hostile host. I'm not going to fucking put up with this bullshit.
You're not the host, so I suggest
I've got
stay in your lane for this one, James.
John, I've got plenty of piano wire for multiple people. I would stand down. You don't want this.
Masquerading? Is that what you're saying?
Gil's gone full, I'm the captain now on this.
Yeah. It was just a matter of time.
So you've got some new business.
Not really. I've been just kind of jumping around, doing this. Sure. I don't know. The thing is, I like to, for me to consider something new business, I like for it to be juicy. I like
so
for it
old.
to be, I like,
rotten.
No, I like for it to be just, me playing something substantially. I have came back finally to Cyberpunk 2077. I'm about to kick off playing the Phantom Liberty DLC, but really what I've done so far is I've just gone through and rebuilt my character because, of course, they released, along with the DLC, they updated the game to version 2.0, which is going to be the final version, and some might argue probably should have been what they shipped with, even though the game is still pretty buggy. You'll still be rolling along and see, kind of, this is just kind of a physics bug you see in games where, if there's a vehicle there, you'll see it kind of drop out of the air. Ever seen that in a game where it's like you see a vehicle off in the distance?
I mean, what?
It'll kind of shudder, like it just dropped down onto the ground, and it's sort of just like.
You know why they do that, right? Because they don't want them to accidentally spawn at a negative height and get stuck in the ground.
Yeah.
So they spawn them like just above the ground, and then they fall into place when gravity kicks in.
Yeah. Exactly. So there's still kind of goofy stuff like that, but yeah. So I just kind of sat down finally, and they of course you build out your character in that game. So in the 1.0 version of the game, you fill in, like, my character was, what I wanted was just somebody who was really, really good at shotguns. So I kind of found a shotgun build out there for the 2.0 version of it, filled all of those points in, and they've added quite a bit of stuff to the game, just in terms of, like, they now have finishers, which I haven't really played around with, but there's those, so you can, pick somebody up and throw them. And you kind of turn your character into a superhero over time with, augmenting them with, like, certain cyberware and stuff like that. So I'm at the point now where my character, they can, they have a double jump. So, which makes it easier not only to attack enemies, but you can also clamber up higher onto, higher buildings and stuff like that. But you can also do stuff like I've given my character kind of a leap where you can leap up in the air and then smash down. It's called Quake, and you can knock enemies away and also damage them and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things that they've added that you can augment your character with now. So I got to play around with that a little bit, figure that out, and probably clean up a couple more quests. So like where my save is at now is, I could go do the very last mission, but I could also go break off and go do this Phantom Liberty part, which is in a different part of town, and it's a completely different, separate story from the actual main quest that you can do. So, the build that I'm chasing, I don't have all of the points for it yet, but I'll get there. So that's sort of like that, my little side project there. Still playing some Monster Hunter World. And in terms of Nintendo stuff, I've been going through the back catalog. I did take a little look at because I was trying to get some stuff working, some emulation stuff working on Steam. I did take a look at Kid Dracula. That's a very strange little game.
Yeah.
one of those huge sprite games where the character is just very, very big. I wasn't really controlling it very well. I think I was having some controller problems with my Steam Deck, but yeah, very interesting. I'll come back to it. I'm just playing through. I'm actually, just for the heck of it, I'm playing through the original Castlevania on the Analog Pocket.
God.
So I think I have a save going of that on the Steam Deck, but I don't know how far I've gotten. I know I have a save going of Super Castlevania 4. I'm still playing through that. So I've been kind of just going through all of these like NES games. I did finally save scum my way through the original Super Mario Brothers. Not that I haven't beaten that before, but I was just straight up save scumming the whole thing. But with the only caveat being I could only save at the beginning of a level. Well, not totally, but yeah. So finally did beat that. What I didn't remember though is that when you beat the game, it lets you choose your level. I don't remember that. It's because it says at the very end, it says press B to choose it doesn't even say choose your world. It's actually not even that specific. It just says, something very vague about press the B button for your world or something like that. And then I realized that that when you go back to the title screen, you can actually pick which level you start on. Which I don't remember that at all. I do remember being able to start as Luigi, but I don't remember that level select.
I don't remember being able to start as Luigi, but I thought that. So you're talking about Super Mario, the first one, the
very first one. Yep.
Okay, I think that maybe when you beat it the second time, you can get to choose your world or something.
Okay.
I guess that's, I don't know. Like, were all the Koopas the Beatles? Or no?
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, people can look up on Wikipedia exactly what they can unlock when they beat Super Mario, I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either. It's been so long since I've beat it. It says, okay, after beating the entire game, you'll return to the title screen. If you hit the B button, you'll be able to choose which world you'd like to start in. So I guess that's normal, I guess.
Sure.
I guess, you know?
Yeah, there's tons of stuff that I don't know, that we forget about these games that probably were in the manual or whatever. You know, like the fact that you can continue your game if you have a second controller. And I don't remember what the trick was, but basically, anyway, I just said it. You needed a second controller to be able to continue. I guess I'll close up new business with my new business. So a game that I played a couple of weeks ago, I played through it very quickly with Karen, and I barely remember it because it was an hour long and there's not that much to say about it, is Mystic Warriors, an Arcade Archives release. Now, this is a title that I believe was made by the same team at Konami that made, Sunset Riders, definitely. But also maybe the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game. So that was one of the reasons why I picked it up. I was like, you know what, I just want to blow $10 on a game that I'm, that maybe we're never going to revisit. Maybe it's not that good, but at least it's going to look good. It's going to be, fun enough for an hour. So, we played through that, and it's very goofy, very silly. As I said, like, it's by the Sunset Riders guys, so there are references. So you're playing, basically this was a 4-player brawler, except that it's not like Final Fight or Streets of Rage in that it doesn't have the Z-axis in there. You're not going into and, back. What's the opposite of into? Anyway, you're not moving back and forth in the background. Yeah, you're strictly on a 2D plane. So it's more of if we're going to compare it to other ninja games, I guess it's more like Shadow Dancer or like that series from Sega. That the name will come back to me at some point. Shinobi. Thank you. So strictly on a 2D plane. So it's a little bit less interesting than something like even Ninja Turtles was, because there's just very few options here. The enemies come from, all around you, but never from the back. Like, you can't dodge them that way. The gameplay, so 4 players, so I expect that when you're playing 4 players, it must be pretty crowded on the screen, and I'm not sure.
Because it's got big sprites.
It's got big sprites, yeah. And ultimately, there's not that much space on the screen for you to move and for enemies to show up. Like, if you're a 4, you must be like blasting through that game really quickly, unless the enemies just take a shitload of damage to kill. Then I guess that would be one way that they would scale up the difficulty as more players joined in. It's kind of funny that the game, so it was playable by 4 people simultaneously. The character screen has 5 characters. Whoever you don't pick gets kidnapped, basically, which is an interesting choice. Like, I guess if 4 people start the game together, they kind of lock themselves out of being able to choose the 5th guy. There were only 2 of us. Karen played as the only woman. I think that if you don't pick the woman in the game, maybe by default, she's the one who gets kidnapped, because 90s games were like that. These characters, as far as I can tell, have some sort of relationship between each other. I think that you have to play through the game to discover that. I think that the guy who got kidnapped might have been her father, and some other guy's best friend or something. So this game
I hate when that happens.
Yeah, this game makes very little sense. There's I think the big bad guy is Skull Industries, who turned out to be evil. And they've got an army of ninja, and perhaps robot ninja, I'm not sure. Definitely robots towards the end. I don't know if all the ninjas that you fight are robots, but definitely some of them. And I guess they're intent on world domination. You end up going through like a city level, which ends in like basically you go through a drive-in where people are watching a Sunset Riders movie, and then a fuel tanker kind of goes through and blows up, and then you're fighting this ninja on a flaming rooftop. It reminded me of a little bit of Lethal Weapon 3, which was unfortunate. There was no ninja in there, but there was a guy with a flamethrower. Anyway, whatever. I think that might have been 4, actually. I'm so sorry for this tangent.
Which is the one with Joe Pesci's bleach blonde, or is it multiple?
I think definitely 4, but yeah, maybe it happened earlier.
I don't remember this, and I assume that's a self-defense mechanism.
Probably.
So 4 is the one with Jet Li, right?
Sure, that sounds right. Sounds like something that could have happened.
I believe so. Yes, that's
maybe I'm hitting the mark closer than I thought with my Lethal Weapon reference. Maybe that's why I thought about it. I thought, I forgot that Jet Li was in the Lethal Weapon movie. Wow. But yeah, so very goofy 90s shit in both Lethal Weapon and Mystic Warriors. At some point in one level, you're going down, a ski slope, like a mountain on skis, shooting everything that moves. Very quickly, I realized, the main gameplay here is that you're throwing stars at the enemies, and when you get close, you swing a sword at them. It's very, again, shinobi-like in that way. But you have to throw so many shurikens at the enemies, and there's no auto shooting. It's you have to keep pressing that button. Very quickly, I got tired of that. Thankfully, Arcade Archives has options where you can just set, the auto fire. So we did that very quickly. We saw the sights. We saw the bonkers story. It was maybe more poignant towards the end than we thought it would be. Did not expect that. I guess I would kind of recommend it. I guess I could say, look, you're going to get mostly the same experience that we did by looking at a playthrough on YouTube. That would be true. But at the same time, it was a fun enough time to a good enough way to spend an hour. So if you're interested in it, it's very pretty and colorful. and then you can play through it in an hour and then delete it and never go back to it again. So the other game that I wanted to talk about is so this week, today, I believe, this week, Star Wars Dark Forces Remastered has come out by Night Dive
I saw
Studios.
this and I was like, whew. I figured you would go in on this.
Yeah, well, it's like back in the 90s, I was very into Star Wars, and this was a time when Star Wars was kind of seeing a resurgence, basically. Like there hadn't been movies in a long, long time. But
as I recall, you attempted to play this a while back. An old version of it, right? And it sucked.
Maybe. No, I think I tried to play Shadows of the Empire.
Okay.
And the PC version was not quite as playable as the N64 version for various reasons that I don't really remember. But I think part of it was that in the N64 version, you could lock your aim basically by holding down the Z trigger, I believe. Like if you increase the difficulty in Shadows of the Empire, like your blaster fire would kind of go all over the place. But if you were aiming by holding down the Z trigger, you would fire it very precisely. So that was one thing. I think that the PC version doesn't do that, and also the controls were just really bad. And there's a very quickly, like very early in the Hoth foot levels, you have to fight an ATST on foot, and you kind of have to go under it and shoot missiles up its butt. And it's just impossible in the PC version with the controls that I had. So I gave up. Dark Forces has aged better, but I cannot talk about Dark Forces Remastered. Why? Because I did not play it. I have not bought it because it's almost $40 here in Canada, and I think that's way more than I'm willing to pay. And I was considering it for a little bit, but I was like that's nuts. Don't I already have this game from one of the many, many, many sales, including like the May the 4th sales? And in fact, I did. I had this on Steam. So I was like, okay, so I've got Dark Forces at home. I can just play that. So I fired this up probably for the first time ever since I bought it. Who knows when? Maybe a decade ago, maybe more. And so I had to... The frame rate was not very good on PC. I had to look up, if there was a solution for that, and I did find it. I had to go into the config file for DOSBox and basically, up the put another refresh rate. But anyway, like there was some number I had to make it go from 20,000 to 70,000 so that it would emulate a better PC than it was emulating. So this is one of the, just one of the many little joys of playing old games on PC. But, once I did that, it was much smoother. And, so I cannot speak to the improvements on the remastered version. I would suggest that people check out John Reardon's review on YouTube. Very thorough, he's very kind of technically minded, and like he's his review of the Tomb Raider collection, it was very good. He pointed out the ways that the way that they remade those games didn't really make sense. They just went and didn't really put a whole lot of thought into the textures that they were replacing the old textures with. And so that includes, using pictures of real rocks to make like these rocks facades in the game, but like the lighting on the photo that they took is coming from the wrong place. Like it's coming from the bottom, where like
it's using an aerial shot of a rocky surface and then putting that on a cliff face. That's inclined upwards, so it just doesn't look right, and also it's just. They had limitations because they wanted to do the whole thing, kind of like the Dragon's Trap remake, but with a 3D game where it's like, okay, you press a button and it goes, to the old graphics. So they couldn't change the geometry of the actual kind of playable area anyway. And all this, but yeah, it definitely seems like it's a bit wonky. I think the biggest thing that people have talked about is like the whole more atmospheric lighting actually undoes some of the kind of tacit like path finding they were doing in that, they would light things up in the original, with pre-baked sort of like make something brighter to kind of drag players along in a certain direction, which now that they've got like the new graphics with like more realistic, more atmospheric lighting of like, okay, no, well, it should be darker or well, that's true, but it undoes that kind of like breadcrumbing that the game originally did. So yeah, there's a few issues there, I guess, but you can always go back to the old graphics. So
yeah. And I guess my point here, bringing this up, is that John knows what he's talking about, or he seems to anyway. Like I feel like if I had to put out a review of that stuff, I would not have been able to explain exactly what was wrong with the. Like I might have felt like something was off, but I might not have been able to explain in such detail.
Well, there was another one with like, was it like where like the water. Like it's a more realistic water thing, but now it doesn't look like it's moving. Whereas no, in the original, it's like, obviously it was like pixely, but it was clear, like, no, this is running water. It will wash you away. And now it's like, no, it's realistic, but it looks still, and then you don't expect to get washed away, but you do. So yeah, there's a few things.
Yeah. So he did such a review for Dark Forces, and, yeah, this remaster is better. Like it's more thoughtful, and it's nothing really clashes. Like like it's like the enemies in the game and like the items that you pick up, they're all sprites, right? 2D sprites, but so there is a version of them that's more high res, but they still look like they're old. Like they didn't put like a realistic photo of a thermal detonator, in the game to replace the old sprites. Like it's still kind of fuzzy. It still looks kind of like a game from the 90s, but it looks a tiny bit better. Stuff like that. Like they made sure that nothing really clashed, and they give you the option of toggling basically every single thing in the game, like every single improvement. You can just like turn on or off. Like if you want the old music, you can have it. If you want like non-jagged edges for the level geometry, but you still want the old sprites, well, you can turn one on and turn the other off, etc. So that sounds really, really good. I can't do anything like that in the version I'm playing, which is just the original game emulated on DOSBox. But one of the things also, other than the price, that made me pause was in his review. He mentions that they didn't add a mid-level save, which seems like so basic. And this is one of the things that's more unique about Dark Forces. It uses a lives system, which is not something that a whole lot of first-person shooters were doing back in the day.
Or ever, really.
Yeah,
it's
still
very
weird. Unusual. Yeah, it was like, it felt retro back then in 1995, because Wolfenstein and 3D and Doom didn't have lives. You could just save anywhere anytime you wanted, anywhere in the level, and you could just load up your old save. Dark Forces doesn't work like that. So it's got, 90s, mid-90s level design, and that it's very labyrinthine. It's you do have an in-game map that you can refer to. But yeah, like it's really not kind of a corridor shooter like something like Call of Duty became. It's very much like find your way through a map, back in those days, lots of games were mostly about like go find the blue key to open the blue door and the red key for the red door, etc. And as John mentions in his review, Dark Forces did a better job of switching things up or making it not seem like you were just looking for the key to a door. Its engine was pretty advanced at the time in that, unlike Doom, it allowed the level design to have several floors and, for things to be, to have several levels.
It was properly three-dimensional.
Kind of. I can't say for sure. I think that, like it was not using polygons, so it was, there was an amount of fakery, and that was evident when you were, like, you could tilt your view up and down, and when you do so, it kind of deforms the perspective, so you can tell that, like, okay, yeah, they're faking things here. But yeah, like, it was pretty advanced for the time. And it remains a pretty fun game. Like, I was playing through, I played through the first 3 levels. But, I think that revisiting this old version is going to be enough for me. And even on May the 4th, if this drops in price, like, I don't think I'll be going to the remastered version, even though that's probably a much better way to revisit this game. But the fact that they didn't add a mid-level save, like, to me, that kind of, defeats, it kind of destroys the value of such a remaster. Like, I can't imagine that it's all that much different an experience from playing the original game if they didn't fix that. Like, I would have taken even just like a mid-level kind of fleeting save, just like on the Wii Virtual Console, where it would self-destroy after you, after you loaded it up.
Yeah, I think the tough part, I guess, about this is, because Night Dive just a whole slew of FPS remasters from, this kind of era. And the problem is so many of them start at a much lower price and offer, the same kind of, enhancements of the game and all that kind of thing, stuff like, the Quake games.
Yeah, motion controls.
For
aiming,
motion controls, for instance, for Switch, so like, the Doom games, the Quake games, Turok, like loads of Exhumed / Power Slave, like just loads of these things. But yeah, this comes in way higher than those, presumably just because of having to deal with the Star Wars license. So I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, I don't think it's like some sort of outrageous gouging or anything, but it is going to be, I think, for me, like, I bought the Doom versions on there for like, a few quid each. So unfortunately, it kind of sets a standard. It's like, I quite enjoyed playing those there. So this is something I might have some interest in, but it feels like you're swallowing a lot there when it's that much higher. I think it's about £25 here as based on it being $30 I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and part of it is that, like, this is a game that I already own and also already played. I think that I might be more likely to check out Power Slave at some point because I've never played it, and it's never come down in price on the Switch so far. But yeah, at some point maybe I'll bite the bullet and check it out. But Dark Forces, like, it's a game I already had access to and I've already played, and so, like, the novelty of playing an old PC game on Switch is kind of gone, although it's still nice to be able to play like Doom and games like that.
It's just the thing that happens now.
Yeah. And so, like, not being able to save mid-level, like, that's kind of a deal breaker because I just played through the 3rd level at around 8, so an hour before we started recording. It took me half an hour to finish it. So it was like 8:30, and I was like, well, I could try the next level, but I have no certainty of how long it's going to take me. Like, I didn't want to take the chance. Turns out maybe I should have taken the chance because we started recording late anyway. But the point is, like, they really should have added that. Hopefully they'll patch it in.
It seems like even if it's just like a hot save.
Yeah.
Like anything.
Yeah. But the other additions that they put in, the visual improvements, like that all sounds really good. And this remains a pretty fun game. Like it is very goofy in that Star Wars Extended Universe way. Kyle Katarn is I don't know. Like it
I reiterate,
feels so,
my all Star Wars names are stupid position.
Yeah, it's a very it's goofy in the way that a lot of stuff outside of the original movies felt goofy at the time. But now it turns out that more movies have come out and they all kind of feel goofy. And now, with my 42-year-old eyes, I realize and the original movies were goofy as well. It's just I was too close to them to realize that.
It's just like your Chewbacca's there because Lucas used to like driving around with his big dog in the passenger seat. I mean, that's what it is. It's always been silly.
Yeah, I mean, it's just modern Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the where was I going with this? Yeah, no, it's still fun. Like the levels are somewhat interesting to get through. Maybe a little bit too much time is spent early on, and visually they're not all that interesting. Like there's a lot of gray and black walls, and like the third level was set in the sewers, so you have to what are they called, Dianagas, the monster in the trash compactor is, you've got that eye that just keeps popping in your face out of the murky water. Always gives you a start, so you have to shoot it. There were not fun enemies in Shadows of the Empire either. I kind of hate them. But yeah, like sewers, not the most colorful Star Wars locale. So yeah, you end up looking at a lot of gray walls, but yeah, like there's kind of an old mid-90s PC game charm to this. Like it kind of reminds me of the time when new Star Wars content was kind of sparse. And I would lap up anything that came out basically, and CG cutscenes were so amazing at the time, and you look at them now and they're so basic and they're really very unimpressive, but back then they were just the coolest thing. They really front loaded the game with them, and so just seeing the whatever cruisers that you see in Empire Strikes Back or whatever, like seeing them rendered in 3D here, like wow, this is so amazing. And then the scenes where you see the characters talking, maybe a little bit less successful. They're just I guess you can look it up, but the pixel art is struggling. The whatever the 320 by 240 resolution.
Hell yes.
Was maybe not meant to showcase I guess comics like faces that are somewhat animated, and like the mouth flap and the the jowls move a little bit, but it's all like kind of grotesque. Like it's as if everyone in this game has kind of a case of like Jabba face or something.
They did it better, roughly. This is the re-release port, whatever, of TIE Fighter that came out a few years after TIE Fighter came out the first time, because they made like 3 versions of that game, where they seemed to be cognizant of the fact that they couldn't do faces. So instead you'd get these like really striking stylistic shots when people were, so like the most famous one is if you do really well, you get inducted into the Emperor's personal cadre. And there's this really striking shot from a distance of the Emperor, so you don't really get to see his face very much. There's some shots from behind, where like they seem to be more aware of like, yeah, we actually can't do faces, until they went full fucking video and you had got nightmares like Rebel Assault, which Rebel Assault 1,
which was some of that Star Wars content that I would just slap up at least.
I played Rebel Assault 2 like 35 times. It's garbage, but I played it.
Yeah, at least like that was like, I was not the Star Wars nut in my group of friends. Someone else was, and he had a PC, and so he bought those games, and so I managed to experience them without ever spending money on them. So that's good. But good lord, Dark Forces is a much better game than that.
It's a game versus basically what should have been on the fucking CDI.
Yeah, and it's genuinely a good take on the Doom genre, I suppose. Like Duke Nukem 3D is a game that I've had on my wish list forever on Switch and Xbox, and every time that it comes down to like $2, I'm like, do I want to actually spend $2 on this? And I kind of desist.
It's not really $2. It's more the time that you would put into that game. I can tell you as someone who has played into Duke Nukem 3D.
But they're not. I mean, they're not that long.
No, they're not that long.
But
it's
also
just...
they haven't aged that well.
No.
And Dark Forces, I feel, has aged better. It was a better game in the first place, and it contains 100% fewer quotes from Army of Darkness.
Nice.
Yeah. So, it's a good game. I would recommend it. Maybe not at the current price, but May is so close. I just get the feeling that we're going to see a price drop eventually. And that's it for my new business. I went a little bit long. I'm sorry. But what a trip down memory lane that was, wasn't it?
It was remarkable.
Was that rhetorical, or do you want us to answer it?
It was a journey for everybody, Guillaume.
Yes.
A journey into our own senility.
Yeah, so I was happy to take us there, and I think I'm getting a little bit tired of hosting, so thankfully this segment is over. Are we doing a second segment here, or are we going to bed?
Well, we haven't picked an email, so I'm going to go ahead and declare a break here.
Excellent.
Just for also because I need to plug my laptop in. And when we come back, we're going to do an email, maybe two, because I promised one and we could just answer it real fast because they've already answered it for us, which makes it super easy. But maybe just as a
James is hashtag not my host, by the way. But I will break because that is what the group is doing, but not because James says so.
Find your fanciest boots so when we hang you upside down, they hold. That's all I'm going to ask. And on that absolute demand of violence, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be doing a little bit of email. So stay tuned. We return with email. What is email? Email is the thing you send us. Questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, games, prizes. You can send us prizes in email. The pin to your bank account. You can send it all. That's email. You send them to John where?
RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. Of course, everybody knows this.
That's
you ask
true.
anybody on the street, anywhere in the continental United States, probably. And they'll say RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. Anywhere. Whether it's Iowa.
He didn't even say what you asked them. You just asked them anything.
Yeah, you ask them literally anything, and they will respond RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com like automatons.
And that's how you know that we're living in a simulation.
Exactly.
A bad one.
Mm-hmm.
But also the best one. Mom, where did Daddy go? RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com.
Sorry for reading off the Matrix. RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. RFN, it's all of it.
It's going to be really difficult though when they take family portraits and they say RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com.
It'll be like they
a really
live.
Long time.
People put on glasses and they'll see our faces on everybody.
I once thought about the idea of if we ever did another live show, one of the pieces of merch just being a shirt that just says, "What's the email, John?" And then on the back it just says RFN at NintendoWorldReport.biz or some fucked up bullshit. Just something drastically wrong.
Yeah, that would be really counterproductive. But I think maybe we could register that domain. I don't know.
Counterproductive. We would never on this show.
We would never sabotage ourselves.
I kind of wanted to read the email we got where somebody said they can get us published in Forbes, and I'm like, I know this is a scam, but also I want to submit my Quest of Camelot article to Forbes.com. The one where I say that this feels like it should be written on a IBM Selectric typewriter by someone who lives in the woods.
You sure you want to go with that rather than the bloody Zoetrope Horace or whatever?
I got to work them up to it, please. Also, I need to make another note that Horace is in here because we got jumped on the Google search results again by Nintendo finally.
Oh.
I like that Nintendo was like the 6th search result for Horse Pony.
Yeah, their SEO person was like, this cannot stand.
These motherfuckers. But now there's a My Little Pony wiki in there too. We're 2nd. I don't know where the My Little Pony thing came from. That was unexpected as a new arrival. So, yeah, I'm not suggesting that Horace is part of the My Little Pony universe, but I'm also not suggesting he isn't. Take from that what you will. You can send that Photoshop. Please, God, don't send us that Photoshop to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. I'm begging you not to send us that Photoshop. But I'm going to read an email this week. And this is from Ravio, who writes, Gents, Ubisoft has done it. Those crazy bastards actually did it. They have made the first quadruple A. That's 4 A's for those of you who don't know. Game. Not only does it capitalize on live service craze that died years ago, but they are also charging the full $70 that most AAA games charge for real playable game with no live service features. Now that they've reached the pinnacle of gaming development, we need to find how far we can stretch other letter grade monikers. What games do you think would fit the title of quadruple B game? Beautiful graphics with technical and lovable glitches, like adding a fresh coat of paint to Skyrim but leaving all the bugs from 2011 intact? How about a quadruple C game that almost broke an indie developer and top-tier dumpster bear quality? John, the quadruple D game is all yours. My request... Oh, that's the outro music. You don't get to read the outro music. And he signs off with irregards, which is just mean. It's just not nice. Like, you can at least pretend to have some regard.
I just like the idea that Ravio from the Link Between Worlds actually talks like a Sopranos, like B tier character.
He stole our emails too.
My issue with this email is that I cannot make sense of like basically to me like quadruple B or quadruple C would be a C game or a B game with those like just like maxed out in one area that doesn't make sense. But the of course, like Skull and Bones as a quadruple A game
A
doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit that definition. It's not maxed out in any way. Like it's
it's just bollocks. The whole point is like that phrase. If it has any meaning at all, it comes from things like, bond ratings, right? Ratings on the national debt or whatever. And it's just like, and I mean, I don't know, maybe with some of the quality governance that's going on around the world, we're not so far away from this, but you don't just get to say, our debt's quadruple A, bitches, do you? It's for other people to fucking decide. They don't get to say it's fucking quadruple A.
Are you suggesting the famously well-managed and financially responsible Skull and Bones is not quadruple A debt?
They don't get to say. It's for everybody else to decide what bond rating they would give it. I mean, what sort of credit that
is it
they
talking
have
about
in
the
the
amount of debt that they went into to make the game?
I like the idea though that you can just declare your own bond rating now.
Yeah,
Like I'm just going to walk into the bank.
That's basically what they've done. It's just such bullshit. It's just pulling your own pants down. That's the way I see it. It's just complete idiocy, stunt idiocy. In fact,
I'm just going to walk into the bank and say I demand a loan. My FICO credit score is 1,000, and they're going to be like, it only goes to 850. I'm like, for you peasants, maybe. But for me, it goes to 1,000.
They've got their bloody spinal tap fucking, scale working for your credit rate. It's just such nonsense. So that's the point, isn't it? So I guess, now that they've just completely invalidated the concept of these rated, that we can have quadruple B, quadruple C, whatever. It's whatever we want. We can make it up. Right. It doesn't matter.
So I'm going to let you guys tell me, what do you think the bond rating is of these games that came out on the eShop this week? I'm not going to give you any context. I'm just going to read the name.
Spoilers, junk. That's
Hold on. Mommy's Warm Hot Spring. It's fucking real.
Already, I don't like this game.
Yeah.
I don't like it at all.
I already feel like I need a shower.
Why is that real? Why is Escape Game the old folks' house? There's no punctuation in there anywhere. What is this? That's AAA game if I've ever seen one. Oh my god. So I think if I was gonna come up with what a quadruple B game, excuse me, because nobody ever says triple B game. They say B games, and B games were like this. They didn't have the giant budget. They usually had a cool idea, and they weren't necessarily super polished, and a lot of times they had like a license tied to them. So like Star Wars Bounty Hunter, if the door opened for you, which it never did for me, that was probably a B game. You get to play as a fucking Mandalorian before there was 9,000 pieces of Mandalorian related media content. But you got to go on bounty hunts. Like ultimately, it was just a first-person shooter. Like you just went, or I think it was third person. You just went through hallways like any other shooter. It just happened to be instead of killing the final guy, you had to restrain them. Like it wasn't like earth-shattering, but it was enough of a pivot, and it had enough budget that it wasn't like great, but it was good. Like that's a B game. So, like, how would you turn the dial up to 11 on something where it's fundamentally, you're saying it's pretty average? How do you make extreme average?
It's really tough to do. I could kind of get there with, like, B movies. If it's like, if a B movie has, like, every B movie star in it at the same time, you know what I mean?
Like the super movie?
It's kind of like, the Ocean's 11 of B movies.
Yeah,
like, maybe that's a quadruple B movie, but...
Yeah. Expendables is because it's super expensive, but maybe that's it. Like Expendables were expensive films, but they didn't aspire to be beyond a B movie. They're just very expensive B movies. Like, so maybe that's the space. Maybe it's like,
but how exactly do you translate that notion into video games? It's a little bit harder.
Well, so the one that comes to mind to me is the quadruple C game, which, I'm thinking of like the highest possible resolution, the best, most advanced lighting tech that we have for a Cubivore remake or remaster.
I was going to say the best lighting for Mommy's Hot Spring.
Just like you've never seen Cubivore so polished, just like using the latest Unreal Engine and all the effects, but ultimately you're still, it's still just very boxy characters eating each other up, and I've never played it. But
Cube's so polished you can see the fear in the eyes of the thing you're about to eat reflected on your own face.
You see their goosebumps, which is really upsetting from, when their flesh is just this, supposed to be this textureless flat surface.
I like where your head's at here. So the idea of the hyper expensive, but ultimately like why game. So like in that same vein, like what if Doshin the Giant had $100 million budget, but didn't aspire to do anything beyond what it's currently doing, but just basically they have the cash and they have to spend it on something. What would they do with that extra budget besides make it look even more fucked up? Because they certainly wouldn't make it like what if we gave Ute Saito $80 million and a dream and just said, go do whatever. I'm sure it'll be fine. And then we all just were stuck with his...
So, in other words, turned him into Hideo Kojima.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, Ute Saito's an actual proper lunatic.
He is.
Who will just, like Kojima thinks he's a lunatic.
What you're describing sounds like something that might have happened, like with the Microsoft "let's give money to people when we don't know what we're doing" era. So I guess pick any of those games from that period that fit
the Rise of Pernothra, whatever that fucking game was called.
They presumably are the best, because that's a relatively unusual period of time in games history. There's doesn't really something that kind of profligate is not that common. I mean, people will throw money down the drain, but
irresponsible spending, the adventure.
Yeah.
It's like, what if everything in our release pipeline was a spruce goose? All of it. Every last piece, top to bottom. And it's like, well, that seems ill-advised. And then it's like, well, yes, it is, but we did it anyway. My favorite part about Azure is that they still went and did like a media blitz for it, despite the fact Edge gave it a 3 out of 10. Like, well, we spent all this money. We have to really get it in front of the media so they see it. And the media's like, we would like to no longer see this game. Thank you very much.
Although I suppose, you could look at Disaster Day Crisis, couldn't you? Because that's kind of like every B movie rolled into one.
It really is. What if?
Although it's also riffing off some of the ones that would fit more into A movie territory from the 90s as well, because those disaster picks got so big that they were like the blockbusters quite often before like comic books and fantasy just like completely started to monopolize that space in the aughts. But yeah, some of it is a more B pick stuff like. Was it the one with Keanu where it's flooded or whatever, or is no, it's not Keanu. Whatever, Morgan Freeman is in it. I forget.
Oh,
Hard Rain. Do you remember this?
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, I think the Keanu one I think is a different movie. Yeah, Slater's in it. That's yeah. So some of the things that it references are definitely not like top tier stuff. And, obviously the way the game's executed is very, very, I guess it's kind of like a latter day Bayou Billy, really, isn't it? All the sort of multimodal stuff. That's like maxing out the bees. So, I can't think of a better example than that from that isn't Microsoft handing out money to people it probably shouldn't.
What if we gave Sega an absolute shitload amount of money to make a third-person shooter that ends up being Gun Valkyrie, which is essentially the most Microsoft like that. That actually isn't a terrible game, but also why did they spend a whole bunch of money on a third-person shooter in 2002? Or Maximum Chase from Microsoft gave Majesco and Genki a bunch of money and said this will definitely not go sideways. It just in case people are wondering, it went pretty fucking sideways. What we need is like a really, really wealthy player who's not presently in the industry but has tremendous amounts of cash to come in and launch an ill-managed video games project with lots of weird contracts and all kinds of weird exclusivity deals. And, oh, hello there, Apple Arcade. How are you?
Oh. There's so many. I thought you were going for Embracer, but okay.
No. Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. The Embracer Group, you have it right there.
Hot. Well, no, because they cancel games. Apple has like financed all these weird Apple Arcade projects and then not talked about them as they come out. We really need somebody who's like desperate to get into the space, but also can be easily snowed and willing to waste huge amounts of money on something like, what if we made a car? An industry we have no business being in, had spent 10 years on it and then just canceled it without ever releasing a product. It's like, yeah, like you need somebody who's willing to make that kind of profligate spending on bad ideas and really just not willing to cut bait early. You need somebody who's willing to hold on to the bitter end. So I think
Google,
like
maybe?
Google. I mean, yeah, we had that with Google's fucking cloud streaming service.
Or Google Glass. I mean, you name it. There's a Google Graveyard website.
Yeah. Was the Google one where they launched the streaming service and they had the art exhibit that showed gaming history and they had a copy of E.T. and without any irony in it at all?
John, I'm sorry to say, like as useful as it was, Google Gravesite has been retired.
That honestly,
man,
if I owned the Google Gravesite, I would absolutely retire it just for the meme, just for the fucking joke. And then I'd launch Google Gravesite, and it's just my old website on it. That's it. Nothing else. No historical context. What is the yeah, I think it was the Google Street. I can't even remember what the name of Google's game streaming service was.
Stadia. Yeah.
Stadia. It was Stadia that put fucking E.T. Atari on the exhibit of gaming history without any irony. It's like, for their launch event, it's like, you guys do know that game sucks, right? And was a famous disaster, right? No, you don't know that? Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure this is not a harbinger of something ill approaching. Stadia was canceled like a year later. Luna's still out there, right?
Yeah, Luna's still out there. Yep.
We just got to get Amazon to be like, no, because all right. Oh, I got it. So we don't have it for games, but we do have it for television now because the Rings of Power just got a third season.
Yeah.
It just got a third season announced. Which is like, Amazon's like, yeah, this thing loses money hand over fist, and all the critics think it's bad. What should we do? We should sign a third season. It's like, no, you shouldn't. You should stop making them.
Have they even done a second?
So the second season has come out, or?
No, I think they signed a deal for the third season before it came out.
Sure.
It's just.
I still haven't had the pleasure of seeing any of this, so maybe I'd like it. I don't know.
I enjoy it.
You won't.
Yeah, I liked it.
I've seen.
It has its corny moments, but
I think it's nothing but corn. It is like tortilla chips. The series. It is so ridiculous. Yeah, they season 2, I guess, just wasn't quite done when the strike happened. So like they had finished filming but hadn't finished producing. It's coming out soon-ish, and then they just signed a deal for 3. Maybe it'll be better. I don't know, but it is way more money than what they're getting in terms of quality. It's like I think it costs more than the Lord of the Rings trilogy films.
That is crazy,
guys.
Yeah, that's pretty nuts. But yeah.
What are you doing? Stop it! No. So, like, we need the movie equivalent of, like, I'm going to spend... Well, then, like, can we talk about... We have uppercase, and we've said that in quadruple letters. What if we did lowercase to indicate, like, it's less than? It's less than what we were going for. So, like, instead of an A game, it's a lowercase A game. What's the difference between a lowercase A game and a regular B game? Aspirations, maybe? It's like your aspirations were an A game, but your funding, not quite there. So, like, trying to think of what would a Nintendo C game be? A game where they're just like, fuck it, I don't know. And I just keep coming back to Forever Oasis, which I'm just going to keep dumping on today, apparently. I don't know why that game's stuck in my brain.
I mean, let's start from the bottom. Everybody 1-2 Switch or whatever. Where's that?
Oh, that's
Is that Junk Bond, or are we giving it?
That's a Junk Bond. Yeah, that's absolutely a Junk Bond. That's a as you have noted in the past, that's a literal bad.
Yeah, well, certainly. See, they treated it that way for a while before it was like...
They had copies sitting in a fucking warehouse. They had to get rid of them.
Yeah, it's just that they were moved to sort of grudgingly to actually go public with it,
They didn't want to keep paying the storage fees.
Yeah, I wonder if they were kind of trying to come up with something to add to it to make it unlock the fun or something. Like, okay, what if like 10,000 people could play at the same time? Would that make the game better? And then they just like sit on there and like think about it for a bit. And
can we source a Horus mask for every copy of the game in an economically feasible way? And somebody in the accountants in the back like, no, we can't even sell the game for an economically feasible way. You want to put more shit in it? No. It is the 1-2 switch is the I'm going to launch my Tesla car into space to prove how cool a guy I am. It definitely has made me a huge nerd of video games. And it's like, no, this is a terrible idea. Why did this get greenlit? Why didn't it get? I know people, especially with all the layoffs, people are like, oh, why do these games keep getting canceled? It's like, sometimes games should get canceled. Like, projects getting canceled is not necessarily a bad thing. Like, sometimes it's the correct course of action depending on the product.
Well, and not falling into the sunk cost fallacy, that trap. I assume that does happen, quite a bit, where people have the attitude of sort of in for a penny, in for a pound, and it just means you lose more money at the end of it.
And it may end up being more detrimental to your employees than if you had just canceled the project they were on early on.
Then you have to do a harsher correction, and then that costs more jobs. Exactly. It's sometimes, but a lot has to go right for a game to be good. This is just the fact of the matter. It isn't just about how much money you spend on it or how many people you throw at it, man hours, whatever. There's just things have to come together because it's an intensely collaborative thing, and yet sometimes it's not happening. And you'd be better off if you can. You're recognizing that early and kind of acting accordingly.
Like, we've talked about it. Like, you can kind of spend your way to a competent game.
Yeah.
Like, if you throw enough money at it and it still comes out just, like, blatantly incompetent, like, that's really a statement about your studio leadership.
Yep.
But you can't necessarily spend your way to a game people will remember.
Yeah, or a game people will love. Like, that's something that's much harder to predict.
Right. Like, you've got to do something in the space. You've got to make it, like, memorable in its own way.
I mean,
so I'm going to give...
Like, do people love Final Fantasy 16? Not really.
No, and are people still talking about it? Not really.
The biggest turnaround, the biggest turnaround I can think of is probably Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah,
it seemed like that was really in an awful state, and then they managed to turn it around, and there's a lot of genuine affection out there for that game, seemingly.
Yeah. Yeah, but I will say, the one thing I will say is that the genre that's in, it lends itself to doing that. You can reclaim a game.
Sure, yeah.
That license, like that's, it's not much, you can do that
They threw crazy money at that game. Like, I mean, absolutely said, like, no, we are going to, because the thing is, they cheaped out on making it.
Yeah.
Like they offshored a bunch of the work. They probably didn't keep enough of an eye on it to make sure it was going to be good, and it was bad. And they said, like, we got to fix this. We can't have the game in this state with this rep have this name.
Yeah. Well,
and they did it.
Fortnite is another example.
Oh yeah, they just chased the trends. Yeah. All right, I got one for you, John. I've got the ultimate quadruple C game. Are you ready for this? And where it was an economic winner.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you a year. And you tell me if you can get there on what this is. It came out in 2005. Okay. And it was a massive seller.
That's
You're going to laugh when you hear the name. You're going to I'll give you a little bit more. It was a Vivendi game, Vivendi Universal.
Okay.
I'm trying to think what else I can give you that doesn't just immediately give it away. It was a shooter.
God, a shooter. Vivendi Universal shooter.
It got a sequel in 2009 that did not do as well.
Was it Crysis?
No.
No? Okay.
No. I will give you a hint. It has a celebrity tie-in.
Oh my God, okay. In 2005?
Yeah.
Is it Blood on the Sand?
It is Bulletproof, the first game. Blood on the Sand is the sequel.
Wow.
Okay. 50 Cent Bulletproof. So that game is bad.
I gotta play. I gotta play that. There are certain games that I need to play. That is one of them.
It's Blood in the Sand is funnier. It's worse, and it has more budget, but it's funnier. It's way funnier. But 50 Cent Bulletproof fucking sold truck tons, and people remember it because one, that really bad box that's just a drawing of 50 staring at you with a scowl on his face.
Yeah.
But two, because like it hit the right moment with the right person on it, did the right thing, and it was fucking everywhere, and so it lived in people's memories because it basically had the right idea, but just fucking didn't care. And it was like, yeah, we're gonna make a game where you play as a shooter with Tony Yayo and Lloyd Banks.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
It's like, are you kidding me? This is the fucking game we're getting here? Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Blood in the Sand is way funnier. It's way funnier because they have so much more budget, so there's so many more voice lines of like Fiddy yelling at like Tony Yayo to start shooting that gun. It's so fucking ridiculous. Yeah, but like that's a Triple C game. Like they knew they were making a game that's not very good. Like, there's no way they play this, but they said like, well, that doesn't matter.
Yeah,
what matters is.
I think what's important there is kind of the era of exploitation, or this is a game of the moment sort of thing. Like we're capitalizing on a fad. I think would be part of a quadruple C game.
I want to point out that there was a PSP port that came out a year later that featured a vitamin water mini game because of course they gave him. Remember, they instead of paying him, they just gave him ownership stake in the company.
Yep.
Oh, I can't. It's so fucking good. It's so fucking good. The G Unit edition is the PSP version. You should play that one. You should explicitly play the G Unit edition.
I'm all about those special editions. You know what I mean? Especially when it's the G Unit. I mean, come on.
Oh, like they knew it was bad.
Oh yeah, and they're shameless.
Yeah, and they're just like, but hey, this is the right moment. So maybe that's what like a 4-tier C game is. We'll pay for the right name to get on this thing. So like, who's today could you put on an absolute trash game? And still expect it to do well. Like, I guess you could go. The problem is like you can't be like someone like Taylor Swift because you expect it to be a mobile game at this point. And
it has to be somebody who's like not that expensive, if you will.
It's got to be the equivalent of the kind of people that Cannon paid in the 80s, and it's got to be like Chuck Norris, Charlie Bronson. But who are the equivalents of those people now? I'm too out of the loop.
Well, Jason Statham.
Yeah,
maybe.
Statham.
Jason Statham's had games.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I want to say he was the leader. He was the lead in a video game not that long ago.
I don't know.
Now I'm gonna have to look it up. There should be a Crank game. There should be a
Crank game.
There was like a whole thing, wasn't it? That some notion that it was a video game like that at the end or something. There was some like twist or something that like he was a game designer or the whole thing. It was kind of the whole thing was a dream.
Don't spoil Crank for me, Greg. Don't you go and do that.
You can't spoil Crank.
Yeah.
So,
interpret that however you like.
Jason Statham, I maybe I'm wrong, but he was apparently the voice actor on in Red Faction 2 and Call of Duty 2003. That can't be right. I feel like he was in more. I want to say it was a game that he was like the face of. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was just somebody who looks like him. Because
I don't think so, because I would have made a mental note of that. Almost certainly.
Yeah. So you're not thinking of Jean Reno and
yeah.
Onimusha 4,
no.
3, I mean. Okay.
I
don't know.
Jean Reno in a modern game right now, today.
Looking like Jean Reno does today. What does he look like today? It's been a while.
Yeah, I can't think I've seen him in anything in quite a long time now.
I think he's kind of bloated from the looks of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
also,
looking older, basically.
Yeah. Yes. I'm trying to think what would be a Like who's the big name actors right now?
Yeah, but it can't be
Timothée
too
Chalamet.
big. Like I said, I think Statham's a pretty good. That's yeah, like The Rock's too big for what we're talking about, for instance. So yeah, Statham, even though like they're in Fast and Furious movies together, right? But Statham and what was it, the Hobbs and Shaw that they're in together?
The spin-off, right? Yeah,
the spin-off. Like, but Statham is definitely like the junior partner there, obviously.
Oh
so
yeah, definitely.
That's a level that The Rock is a territory. You can't go there.
Tom Cruise, he's still a draw. He's older. He's not getting the lead roles that he used to anymore. He's available. Like, but what would a Tom Cruise C-tier movie be? It would
it doesn't. It still does. I know he might not be ruling the box office maybe the way he used to, but like Maverick seemed like it was. I mean, I still haven't seen it, but it was this big hit and it was critically well received and all that. Like he's still doing
it's a good movie.
I know the latest Mission Impossible didn't do as much as they wanted in numbers wise, so there's that. But still, he's like royalty, isn't he? He's too big.
He's way too big.
So I think that's it though. Like, you got to remember, in 2005, 50 Cent was huge.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Like,
but still, his kind of media portability hadn't been put to the test as much.
I kind of think that we have no shortage of like big guys who have been in big movies, but are not ultimately the reason why we went to see the big movies, and those people could easily be in their own quadruple C games. Like,
mind you, if you want the equivalent of Charlie Bronson these days, it's Liam Neeson, isn't it? That's all he gets. It's a stupid revenge movie. So yeah,
my thinking was more like Jason Momoa or Dave Bautista
but nobody goes to see a movie to see Jason Momoa.
Come on, but think about it now. I think,
but that's it. We're just trying to sell the game on a name.
I think, like you had back in the day.
This is all you can afford.
Back in the day, you had Die Hard trilogy, like Taken trilogy. A multimodal video game based on those three movies with Liam Neeson. That's some triple B shit right there.
I'm just trying to think, like, if I want to get people's attention. Jason Momoa ad is on my TV right now telling me that they're streaming exclusively on Max this fucking godforsaken
Logan Paul
movie. Jesus. I mean, you're right, but Jesus.
Yeah.
All right.
I didn't say you had to like it.
What if I told you I have an action game coming out and I'm gonna put one face on the box, like really tight and up close, just to get I know a box is such a dated concept, but just to get it to drum up interest. It's not going to be that good. It's going to be passable. And I'm looking at like top draws in various different things, in music, movie, television, etc. And what if I told you the face on the box looking back at you was the number one woman, female box office draw, Julia Roberts. Julia Roberts' third-person action game. Tell me you're not at least curious to see what that game is. I'm just thinking, like, all right, we're just trying to make a splash with the announcement. Like, I know, Guillaume, you're like, that's budget limitations. But the thing is, we're not going to spend that much money making the game. We're going to spend fucking a pittance there. It's all about just paying my lead. Like, do you think Tony Yayo got paid that much to be in 50 Cent Bulletproof? Fuck no. He probably had to do it contractually with his G-Unit contract. What's my Tom Hanks action film going to be? I don't know. Or action game. Don't know. It's going to be sick.
Polar Triple Express.
Polar Triple Express. That sounds like a porn parody.
It's like a mashup of Triple X with Vin Diesel, right?
Exactly.
And then,
That's exactly what I was thinking of, Greg. Exactly.
I feel like I had this conversation with somebody around Christmas time of, is there a Polar Express porn parody? And neither of us had the courage to Google it. I'm not Googling that. You Google that. I'm not Googling that. You Google that. I don't even trust DuckDuckGo not to track me on that one. They'd be like, no, we're putting this in the special do track category. Like, I would absolutely play a Leonardo DiCaprio led game just to know what fucking dumb bullshit.
I mean, Leo's legit. He's like Scorsese's favorite son.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, but that's it though. Like the fact that he's legit. But all right, hear me out. I want to know what terrible ideas the artist in him is going to bring to this project that absolutely don't belong in this medium, but for contractual obligations, we have to assent to include them because he wants them.
This sounds like Golan Globus letting Christopher Reeve write Superman 4. I mean, we all know how that turned out, or contributed.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's what I want. I want Superman 4.
No, you don't.
let's just take that out of context. And
no one
throw that up on a
Nuclear
billboard.
Man. Trust
I
me,
want
it's awful.
Superman 4, James Jones. Let's just see how that goes over with the public.
I want Superman 4 in video game form. I want Johnny Depp to get to design his own video game. Yes, that's what I want. I don't want there to be any editor in his way. I don't want a producer to go, Mr. Depp, you really shouldn't do that in an interactive medium. I want the full, brain dump from Mr. Depp's mind into my C-tier budget. That's, implemented with the least effort I can. Give it to me. Give me this fucking surreal project that 10 years from now, people will, rediscover and start streaming. Did you know that there was a Johnny Depp game 15 years ago? And it's fucking weird. And they're going to pull it out and start playing it. People are going to, and then we'll just, every 10 years, people will rediscover that game. And we'll all sit there and go, did you know that in 2029 they released a Johnny Depp game and he was the lead producer? I can tell you what this looks like. It looks like fucking David Cage's David Bowie bullshit. And that's what I want. I don't want to play it. I want other people to play it. And then write about their internal, the internal suffering that they produced. But David Bowie is the ultimate example of this from, the PC space. Because, what was the name of that game?
Omicron?
Yeah, Omicron the Nomad Soul is a fucking terrible game. And it's got so many bad ideas where, you take over people's bodies because you're the Nomad Soul, but in the process you kill them. So you just kill people to solve puzzles. People who had nothing to do with anything. And one of the puzzles involves you taking over someone's body so you can have sex with his wife, knowing that it will kill him afterwards. And
What a way to go.
And Dave Bowie's like, yeah, I'll be involved in that project. Give me that. Give me that shit.
Oh, man.
I want it. What number do I have to throw at Morgan Freeman to get him to voice act in a game where I kill people by taking over their bodies and having sex with their spouses?
Their spouses.
I want him to just narrate that game.
Oh, man.
Make that a thing.
Man. That's a heck of a back of the box right there for that game.
The Nomad Soul knew that he was going to ruin this woman's life, but he needed to distract her for 10 minutes. Just give it to me. Fucking, I want it. This has just turned into James fantasy booking now, but I don't care. Give it to me.
Hope
triple
is
C,
a good
triple
thing.
C game.
Perhaps the best of things, but what's better is having sex with somebody's wife. Thanks, Morgan.
And in the process, killing them.
Killing them.
Quadruple D games.
Oh,
games
man.
that are just terrible ideas with no budget. Executed to the worst of our ability. It's
Morgan Freeman signed this contract when he was drunk.
It's like
That's what we're talking about.
We cornered him with a bunch of just basically corn ethanol.
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, have some of this.
Just find famous people at bars and slip them Mickeys and get and sign these contracts with their hand. Throw a pen in their hand and sign these contracts, and we're good. Triple D, baby.
Why does it just have a fingerprint there? You really couldn't hold a pen.
Well, we had to break the pen to get the ink out, but the fingerprint.
You're telling me a Ryan Reynolds-led kart racing game wouldn't be the most interesting project coming out that month? I disagree. I think that would be fascinating.
It would be fascinating.
Would it be good? No, it wouldn't be good.
Even though Ryan Reynolds would be the same as he is in every movie, for the record, but...
Yeah, but he's in a cart now.
That's not true. In one movie he was Deadpool, in another he was Pikachu. He's very multifaceted.
Right.
Multifaceted.
Yep.
I'm just saying, what if Ryan Reynolds' cart? I would play that. I'd play that in a heartbeat. Yeah. I don't care what the budget is.
In one movie he's snarky, in the other he's sarcastic.
Motherfucker sells cell phones on TV. We can get him in a kart racing game. Let's do it. We can do this. We have this power. RFN Games, which again is a subsidiary of RFN Films, which we talked about earlier in the show. Ryan Reynolds Kart Racer coming 2029.
Yep.
You're going to have the Mint Mobile pit stops where you have to pull over and make a call on your bad cell phone plan where you could have the same cell phone coverage for half the price because we don't hate you.
And you can also have, ads for Wrexham FC and everything. It'd be pretty cool.
There you go. There's
a lot there.
You said we can't afford The Rock. The Rock promotes a new product every 20 seconds. What if the game was just nothing but him promoting shit?
Yeah.
We could make money on the game before it even came out.
Yeah.
What if we made money on the game before we even wrote one line of code? It's there. We can do it. It's us. That's a Triple D game. Triple dollars. That's it.
Well,
we got it.
what would a UFL game be? Triple D?
Oh my God. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We're not going to put effort. The USFL? No.
It's got very little to do with the letter, but I'm sorry. I spoke over Greg, and when he mentioned Liam Neeson, now I just can't stop picturing some game where it's not Taken trilogy. It's basically Liam Neeson movie trilogy where he keeps saving his family, but it's the movie from all the movies where he saves his family.
There we go.
So he saves one, he saves the other, they meet each other. It's what the hell? Who is this? Who's this woman?
It's like the Spider-Verse thing, but with Liam Neeson revenge movies.
What if the fourth act it just comes out that he's got multiple families? He's like it's the 1970s when you could do that and have families in different cities.
The final boss is the world where Liam Neeson is the villain that actually kidnaps the families or whatever. He has to fight himself.
I feel you could make something really meta. Not only the wives are who is this woman, and you're cheating on me with her, but also all the villains who kidnapped his daughters and his wives. They're who's this guy? Who's this asshole who's kidnapping your family? I thought I was they get jealous of each other.
I thought the final boss was going to be the court proceedings when it came out that he's in multiple marriages. With multiple families. And they all just keep getting kidnapped.
It turns out, actually, that we only accept you being genuinely upset about 3 wives getting kidnapped. Beyond that, you're not entitled to your revenge anymore, I'm afraid, Mr. Neeson.
This is one too many murders, sir.
We do not legally recognise this revenge quest at this point.
So I think a good example of a triple B game with a theory is when they brought Keanu Reeves out.
Thank you.
Quadruple B, excuse me. When they brought Keanu Reeves to pump up Cyberpunk, when I think they knew where Cyberpunk V1 was. Mm-hmm. And they're well, but Keanu Reeves is here. Keanu Reeves is here. He's here in the room with you right now.
He's got that Johnny Mnemonic and Replicas sci-fi bag, gravitas. I don't know. That's not the word I'm looking for.
Cachet.
But
cachet,
definitely.
Thank you. Yes.
But when the
no
game
other notable sci-fi movies at all that he's been in.
Yeah, I can't think of anything.
They really should have leaned into his Bill and Ted and just have him hopping around in a phone booth, which most people playing the game are what the fuck's a phone booth? So but V2, they didn't really lean into the Keanu marketing because the game's good now.
Well, it's because of Idris Elba also, right?
Yeah, Idris is the face of the DLC, right?
Yeah, that's true. But they didn't push it. They didn't push that part quite as hard because, again, the game stands on its own merits at this point.
Yeah.
Versus its predecessor V1, where it's I do think there's something to be said here about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. By the way, John, did you know that part of his deal with TKO is that he gets all his old trademarks now?
Yeah.
So
I saw that.
Not only does he get the name The Rock, which he couldn't use before, WWE owned that, he also gets all his weird phrases like candy ass and Rudy poo. He now has the trademark to use the phrase Rudy poo because it's the 1990s all over again.
Yeah.
I want that's the name of our game. It's just Rudy poo. That's the game, and it's just The Rock selling shit. There's no interactive component at all. It's just ads all the way down.
So who's going to use Rudy Poo out of line and get sued?
Oh, us right now. We're doing it. We're doing it right now.
Get Rudy Poo sued.
Rudy-Sued. Fuck it. Let's go. God damn it. What a world we live in. All right. Anybody got what a triple? I don't know. What letter do you want to use? And you got a letter we haven't considered.
Honestly, I mean, it's what as we said all the way back to the start. It's whatever you want it to be, apparently. So right. Whatever. Mm-hmm. Don't have to listen to what we think a triple or quadruple B game is. Just whatever you think.
I rate this quadruple X. What is it? It's ultra porn. It's like, oh God, no, please no. All right. Well, on that, emails. It's on the back of the shirt, rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. That's rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. Read the back of my shirt, and you will know where to send your emails, questions, comments, thoughts, games, recommendations for stunt casting our video game to get it off the ground, reviews of 50 Cent Blood on the Sand and 50 Cent Bulletproof, and a critical critique of the message of both. Or your recommended games that we should play for, I don't know, let's go ahead and say the Magnavox Odyssey. Fuck it. What's your favorite Odyssey game? I don't care. That's rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. Greg, what is our music to wrap the show up this week?
Well, we did have a request connected to Pokemon Black and White that I was all set to use if they announced that remake, but they didn't do it. So I thought I'd come up with something relevant to what they did announce, which again, Pokemon Z2A, Z2A, whatever. So yeah, the kind of there was a certain amount of kerfuffle about the phrase launching simultaneously worldwide, wasn't there? That was attached to that, which I think it was a little bit odd, I've got to, because it's like they've been doing that since Pokemon X and Y. Right. That was the one that they started, because for a long time there was quite a substantial localization delay with Pokemon games. So yeah, that was a little bit. It seemed like a bit of an anachronism to focus on that at this point, but still, it was back then. Then they started that practice of getting it simultaneously, and not long after that, you had Super Smash Brothers for 3DS that featured a stage based on Lumiose City, the Prism Tower, that we saw just briefly kind of sketched, literally, in that teaser trailer. So I thought I'd go with one of the pieces of music that they had for the Super Smash Bros. 3DS, kind of version. And obviously there was a few different pieces, but the one that I've chosen is a Yuzo Koshiro remix of the trainer battle theme in that. So this is pretty, a really good marriage for me. I mean, Pokemon battle music is almost always like reliably energetic and entertaining stuff, but you put that in the hands of Yuzo Koshiro, and not surprisingly, it turns out very nicely. So, yep, a nice little journey back to that 2014 with this one. Scary to think that, what was essentially the genesis of the most recent Smash Brothers game is like 10 years old, really. But no, this is great stuff.
Cool. All right, well, on that, it's time for us to go. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Later.
Bye-bye.